Good morning. Today is Terrier Day. Leadenhall is the orangey khaki locomotive, and we've got Bembridge and Cowes, which are in the southern green. And here comes Cowes now on the war loop, and you will see Bembridge coming behind it on the full outer loop. I did plan to run them like the Bluebell, facing each other, double heading, but all my Terriers run at different engine speeds on the same setting. I would not advise running them like this if they do not run at the same engine speed, otherwise you will burn out the engines in your locomotives. If they are digital locomotives, you can set them to running at the same speed and do this top and tailing or double heading without any damage to the locomotive. I hope you enjoy seeing these locomotives run, and thank you very much for watching. They're all Hornby locomotives and they are all analogue. The locomotives in real life had a top speed of around 60 miles an hour and cruised at between 45 and 50. They were built in the 1890s and designed for really light suburban work to cut costs. They were popular with their drivers and crews, and they served for a long time. What always amazes me, not just about these little locomotives, I believe they were in service until '63, is that these steam locomotives were in service when there was no cars. Let's not forget that, they were in service when there was no cars, it was horse and cart, and they were still in service when we had the V bomber and the BAC Lightning jet fighter. In fact, they were in service before we had machine guns. Oh, we may have had the Maxim actually. I stand corrected. But you take my point, the way things came on was unbelievable really, yet these little locomotives, amazing. You can hear they're all quiet. I do have an earlier model Hornby Terrier, but it really is so noisy. It's nowhere near as good as these latest incarnation that Hornby have put out. The Bluebell Railway, they had Newport and Poplar bought in for their 150-year celebration of the Terriers. Unfortunately, Poplar broke down. Newport was running, which came from the Isle of Wight, and the Bluebell's own locomotive, Fenchurch, sadly was not ready to run. However, it is in the final stages. Generally speaking, we haven't bought any new models for our model railway for a long time. Simply because during the summer months it's not really model railway type weather. I know you can play with your model railway anytime you wish to, but during the summer months we do other things. And to be honest, we've got more than enough locos to keep ourselves occupied. The pleasing thing is, I expected with all the weather changes and the heat for these locomotives not to run properly, not because there's any problem with them, but simply because of the expansion and contraction of the track during the changing of the heat that we've had. So it's 42 degrees outside, it's got to have been 50 in here. But you can see everything is running absolutely fine. As are these locos. The great thing about these Terriers is you do not need loads of coaches to make it realistic, and the radius of your track, I believe these will run on radius 1, I'm not sure, but I believe they will. But they're very, very forgiving, and these are all Insull frog points, by the way. So those that say that small locomotives will not run over Insull frog points, I've expressed my view before, and you can see here there's no issue at all. Nice and slowly, not rushing round. I believe these may have cruised about 45-50 miles an hour in real life. They weren't designed to break the speed limits. What you need to be aware of when you're running these small locomotives is your track needs to be level. If you've got a bend that's slightly twisted due to heat or not being laid properly, your small locomotive will stop or jerk. You can see there our locomotive just slowed a fraction. Nothing too serious, so I'll get the spirit level on there and I'll have a look. Now where the loco is slowing for a millisecond at the slowest speed, I've swapped the Terriers over, and the other one I have is doing the same thing. I've cleaned the track, and that appears to be absolutely fine. And I've also made sure the track is level. So the only other thing that can be a problem is the back-to-backs on my Terriers are not correct. But I'm not going to worry about it stopping for a millisecond on a demonstration like this. Here they come. And here comes the Terrier just tuntling round. And you see it just slows a fraction there. But for this video I'm not going to worry too much about it, because it's running fine everywhere else. Thank you. I'm going to show you this even though this is about running the Terriers. Now I've checked the back-to-backs of the locomotive. They're not quite 14.50, but they're good enough. I've cleaned the track, cleaned the wheels, all the pickups on the locomotive are fine, and you can see the locomotive is running absolutely fine. So the next thing you do is check the carriage, what you're having it pull. So let's move it along and see what's going on. And the carriage is very, you can't see it, but it's very tight. You've really got to force it through. Can you see? It's difficult, you can't really show it, but when a locomotive is going slowly it feels very tight. So what I'm going to do is check the back-to-backs of the railway carriage. Okay, what I've done is I've reset the back-to-backs on the railway carriage. I've lubricated the wheels and we'll see what happens. Now you've got to bear in mind when you've got there you go, perfect. When you've got coaches sitting in drawers for months at a time, the oil dries on them, everything, they're not on bearings. And all I've done, one of the wheels was slightly out, which would have made it tight on the bend, and I've lubricated the wheels, and look at that, perfect. And I'll show you one more time. And you've got to expect this sort of thing when you don't run a model railway for a couple of months, because also these being very light locomotives, like in real life, they're a lot more sensitive. If I'd have used a larger locomotive of any type, it wouldn't have been a problem probably, but you can see now, really slowly, these fixes are simple. This is the final chapter of our terriers running around the track, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing them run. Now bear in mind, because they're really light locomotives, you might have an A3, A4, whatever, and it would go over the track fine. Then you put one of these on and it doesn't, and it's because they're so light, they can't put as much pressure on the track to get the connectivity. They're a lot more sensitive to dirty track and what they're pulling. It's as simple as that. So bear it in mind when you're running these. Your track's got to be clean, it's got to be level, especially on the points. Small locomotives stutter on points, not because they're insulfrog points, but because the points are not level. And you can see here, these are running over, what have I got, 68 points, and they're running absolutely fine at different speeds. But as I say, I hope you've enjoyed seeing these run. I just thought about doing this because, well, in the end I got to see two terriers run on the Bluebell. That was on the Friday. I don't know when Poplar broke down, but it wasn't running Saturday. But they are smashing little locomotives from Hornby, the newer ones. The older one I have is very, very noisy. But hey ho, it is what it is. These things move on. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing these terriers run. Thank you.